Welcome back. Founded in 1999, the Islamic State, or ISIS, or ISIL, or Daesh, depending on where you are in the world, was not a known word as it is now, at least not until 2014, when they launched an intense campaign rooted out of the civil war in Syria in a quest for world domination and the determination of a purely Islamic caliphate based on their own interpretation of these teachings of Islam. Now, ISIS called on believers with skills and professions to join the movement, luring young people through social media with the quest of changing the world and earning a place in paradise. Today, ISIS, or the Islamic State, is threatening to perpetrate more violence than seen in the civil war in Syria, all over the country, and in Iraq. A major coalition led by the United States and Syria has been battling to bring down those groups' activities, and other countries such as France and Russia are also weighing in solo but determined. The group's activities have dominated discussions at the world stage, and leaders took notice at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Allahu Akbar.
This has been a recurring discussion, the war in Syria, and most importantly, how to clamp down on the activities of Islamic State militants. During one of the meetings at the World Economic Forum, Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi promised the group's military defeat.
I gave a pledge that 2016 will see the end of Daesh militarily in Iraq. But on the terrorist thing, this will continue.
He also referred to the Iraqi government's capture of Ramadi, a provincial capital west of Baghdad. This marked a major milestone for the US-trained Iraqi forces.
We are winning this war. We have kicked Daesh out of Ramadi. It's not only Ramadi, the city proper, is complete area outside Ramadi, which, to be honest with you, some areas were never under the control of Iraqi security forces for a very long time, even before Daesh rolled into Iraq. Now it's been liberated, Daesh being pushed back. Daesh is almost on the retreat, is collapsing.
Previously, the Iraqi armed forces have only been supporting Iranian-backed Shiite militia.
Most or majority of hardcore fighters in Iraq are non-Iraqis. They are from all over the world. And of course, Daesh is not being created in Iraq. It's being created in Syria. That's a big question that's got to be answered. How Daesh was allowed to be built in that strength in Syria.
Meanwhile, in another panel, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Ashton Carter, said Turkey could do more in the fight against Islamic State militants. He said the country is in a pivotal position, historically and geographically.
Turkey, the reality is it shares a big border with Iraq and Syria, which border has been porous to foreign fighters, Klaus, going in both directions. Yeah. And I think the Turks can do more. I think the Turks can do more to fight ISIL. They're helping us fight ISIL by, for example, hosting our aircraft in Turkey. I'm grateful for that. But I think they can do more. So something that's very much on my mind this year is the defeat of ISIL. This needs to occur. It will occur. And it needs to occur first and foremost in Syria and Iraq. This is the parent tumor of ISIL.
He also said the U.S.-led coalition fighting the Islamic State needed to take back the cities of Mosul and Raqqa. Beyond the World Economic Forum, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden on Saturday said he and Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu have discussed ways of further supporting Sunni Arab rebel forces fighting to oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and that both countries are prepared for a military solution against the Islamic State in Syria if a political settlement was not possible amidst uncertainty over scheduled peace talks.
And that's a priority for both our nations so that we can prevent new fighters and equipment from reaching ISIL and conducting attacks against Syria, and so that the control now and after we defeat ISIL of the border is within Turkey's control, that it's secure, that there are no separate states sitting on your southern border.
Mr. Davutoglu said only the legitimate Syrian opposition should be involved in Syria peace negotiations. The latest round of Syria peace talks were scheduled for Monday in Geneva, but were at risk of being delayed partly because of a dispute over who will comprise the opposition delegation.
Now, also dominating discussions was the migrant crisis in Europe, which French Prime Minister Manuel Valls says is in very grave danger of collapsing due to the pressure of migrants. He suggested the employment of border guards and controls outside the European Union, and that, quote, if Europe is not capable of protecting its own borders, it's the very idea of Europe that will be questioned. His comments were made to the BBC at the Economic Forum in Davos. And while the Czech Prime Minister was discussing with the British Prime Minister David Cameron a proposal to restrict Europe's migrants' access to welfare payments, the Estonian President Toomas Hendrik Ilves criticized what he called the demonization of Eastern European countries by politicians elsewhere in Europe over some governments' reactions to the migrant crisis.
Down in the basement of a five-star hotel in the Swiss Alps is a drama about what refugees go through. Set in a village in Afghanistan where armed men harass residents and subject them to torture and detention. Delegates watch as valuables are confiscated, leaving residents with nothing. Later, they talk about what it feels like to watch such an intense drama.
It was quite unbearable, and I was really telling myself, would my wife, would my baby deal with this? Would my unborn baby be able to handle this? And I was like, what would I do? How do those people feel? And I got myself into that position. For me, it was quite real. And I feel that I must do something when I go back, because some of Africa is where we are. Some of Syria, those are our brothers and sisters. We can't let them just go on like nothing is happening.
Big lad, come. Did you check this? Hey, up, big lad. What did I tell you? Your job every morning is you take the bodies.
I felt as if I was really in a camp. The soldiers were screaming at us, they were pushing us, so it was a kind of feeling of threat, feeling of anger and dishumanity.
The drama aimed to show what forces people to flee their homeland and become refugees.
It's a very intense experience, and it is amazing how quickly you get a little bit off balance. Because in the back of your mind you say it is just a simulation, but in practice you hope that nothing happens to you.
It is one of the many side events in Davos, but the plight of refugees has become the main agenda as Europe faces its worst crisis with the record number of migrants and refugees arriving.
Get on the ground! No, stop! On the ground! No stealing anything! This is my family, man! Open doors!
With Austria putting a formal cap on the number of refugees it will allow in this year, it is raising pressure on German Chancellor Angela Merkel to do the same. Top European politicians pleaded for a deal in which states would agree to accept quotas of refugees. But they admitted that such an agreement remained elusive, with many countries, including much of Central Europe, refusing to accept any migrants. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls said the refugee crisis and security challenge in Europe posed existential threats. In the halls and corridors of a Congress Centre in Davos, there are fears of the European Union breaking up because of the division in handling the refugee crisis. Germany says it cannot take in all the asylum seekers who want to begin a new life there, and it is not unethical of Berlin to limit the influx. Germany has borne the brunt of Europe's biggest refugee crisis since World War II, with more than 1 million asylum seekers arriving in the country last year, many of them coming from Syria, Afghanistan and Iraq. Chancellor Angela Merkel has vowed to measurably reduce arrivals this year, but has refused to introduce a cap, saying it will be impossible to enforce without closing German borders. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Friday joined world leaders in making an appeal to boost funding for the UN to deal with the global refugee crisis. The United Nations said last month that the number of people forcibly displaced around the world was likely to have far surpassed a record 60 million in 2015, mainly driven by the Syrian war and other protracted conflicts. The estimated figure includes 20.2 million refugees fleeing wars and persecution, the most since 1992. The UN High Commission for Refugees says nearly 2.5 million asylum seekers have requests pending, with Germany, Russia and the United States receiving the highest numbers of the nearly 1 million new claims lodged in the first half of the year.
Well, still ahead on Diplomatic Channel, we'll be talking more about President Muhammadu Buhari's visit to the United Arab Emirates. Please stay with us.